All right, welcome back to the Complete Web Dev series. In this series, what we're doing is taking you from a beginner to a job-ready developer. Well, at least that's my goal. Should be your goal too. So the thing is, I'm pretty excited about this video. This video, we are in the middle of a chapter where we are building a content management system with object-oriented programming. And we are getting ready to actually start building the application, well, at least the front-facing part of the application. We're going to build our register form for users to register. We're going to start that today in this video. I suspect that this is actually going to take several videos because we're going to slow down and we're going to explain every line of code as we need it, and we're going to need to add additional functionality as we're building out this form. So this form is going to take quite a while because we're going to do all the form validation stuff, and we're going to do some more security stuff with cross-site request forgery protection. And we'll get to all that as we get to it. Now, so just keep in mind that this form is going to take a while to build, but the subsequent forms that we have to add, because we'll have all this functionality built out from this initial form, should go super quick. But this first form will take a lot of time, as you know, that's kind of true object-oriented programming fashion, where everything takes longer at first but speeds up dramatically going forward. So let's go ahead and switch over to the screen here, and what I'm going to do is do a git branch so I can quickly see where we're at, and we are on video 19. So I'm going to do a git checkout -b v19, and that switches me to the new branch and creates it on my local machine here. But I need to go ahead and push that up to the my GitHub account. So that's this command right here. And with that, we are ready to get going on today's video. So go ahead and just close pretty much everything here, because we're going to pretty much be starting with blank slate today. So we need to add a new controller. So go to your app, controllers, right click on that controllers and add a new file. And here we're going to add our Auth Controller.php. The next thing that I want to do while we're here is go to your views, and let's go ahead and right click on the views and create a new folder, and we're going to call this Auth. So O-U-T-H, and that's going to go, all of our views to our auth that we're going to use in our auth controller are going to live inside of this auth directory. So inside of there, let's create a new file in that auth directory called register.php. Okay, so we'll keep the auth controller and that open. The other thing that we're going to need is a model, and we haven't built any models yet, but right click on the models directory and create a file, and we're going to call this users.php. Okay, so now we have a controller, a view, and a model, which is MVC. We're going to be working with these three things to build out our registration model, and we're going to need more than just these three, but this will get the most of it. So the controller will be the brains behind the operation. It's going to render a view, which will be the HTML and CSS part of it, and the part that the user interacts with. And then we'll also have the data part of it, which will be this user's model right here. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do in the auth controller is, of course, we need to just open some PHP tags here. And the first thing we have to do is namespace this. And so the namespace on this is going to be app/controllers. Okay. The next thing that we're going to need to do is we need to bring in some of our stuff here from the core. We're going to be extending the controller class, so we'll need to use, and then we're going to use our core \, and then we're going to use several things here. So go ahead and get the controller, go ahead and get the helpers. We're going to need the session, and we're also going to need the router. Okay, so now what we can do is let's go ahead and go down a few lines here, and we will go ahead and set this class up. So we're going to say class, and then we need to call it the same thing. So this is auth controller, and this extends our controller class. So now this will have everything that our controller has in it, including the request and everything else. Okay, so one thing that we do need here is we need to create some actions, and the one that we're going to be most using right now is the register action. So do public function register uppercase A action. Okay, and this register action is going to actually take in a variable called ID as a parameter, and we'll set that to new by default. Okay, so now that we have this register action here, the only thing that we need to do right now as of this moment is let's go ahead and set up this view, and then we're going to render this. Okay, now we don't need to pass anything into this render, but we do need to have a view set up for this. So let's go now and let's work on that view just a little bit. So go to the register.php that we have here in the auth register here. And what we're going to do is open our PHP tags, and we're going to do our this start, and we're going to name this content because that's what we named it in our default layout. I'm going to skip down a few lines here, and we are going to end that just like that. And inside of here, let's go ahead and add a row. So let's do a div with a class of row, and inside of there, let's give this another div, and we'll give this a class of poster. I'm also going to add a few more classes here. These are all bootstrap stuff. So we'll do a call medium 8, and then we're going to do an offset medium 2, which will center it. And then inside of here, let's just go ahead and do an h2, and let's just type in the word register right here. So now if I save that, and let's go back to our browser, we should be able to navigate to auth/register. Register, and we should hit enter here, and you can see that now we have register right here on the screen. All right, so we are well on our way here, believe it or not. And so the other thing that I want to be able to do is let's create a form here. So down here, go ahead and type in a form, and the action we'll just leave blank. And for the method, we're going to do post. Okay. Inside that form, what we're going to do is a couple different rows here. So just go ahead and give this a div with a class of row. What I'd like to do is let's set up an input here. And what we're going to do is do a div with a class of form group. Okay, and then one second, let me check my reference materials. I don't want to lead us astray here. Yeah, we'll do a div there with a class of form group, and then we'll do a label. And that for here, we're going to have our what do we call it in the database? We need to look at the users table, go to structure, and we have f name and l name. So I'm just going to do the f name here, and we'll set that to the label to first name. And then for the input, we're going to have an ID is equal to f name. We're going to have a name is equal to f name. Value, we'll just put blank for now, and we'll just close that off like that. And then I want it in place for us to be able to do errors. So what we're going to do here is do a div.invalid feedback. Okay, and then inside of there, we're just going to have an error message. Now this isn't going to show up. Let's go back and save this, and now look at our page here, and now you can see that we have this right here. So we have our first name, and we have this form kind of starting to build up. Let me check one thing real quick. I am currently just looking at my reference project here. Dang it. Okay, so the thing is I don't want to have to type all of this for every single field. So we're actually going to make, and we'll end it on this, but we're going to make a helper class for us to use that will do some really, really cool stuff here. So let's see. Let's go ahead now and let's go to our core and let's create a new file. And we're going to call this new file fh.php. And that's going to be short for form helpers. And the first thing we need to do on that file is open PHP tags, and we will go ahead and namespace this with core. Then what we're going to do is just go ahead and define the class, and that was called fh. And then I'd like to create a public static function called input block here. And this is going to take quite a few parameters. So let me go ahead and open and close those curly brackets, and I don't know why that happened. There we go. And so this input block is going to take a label, it's going to take an ID, it's going to take a value, and then we will do input attributes, and that will be by default an empty array. And then we'll do wrapper attributes, also an array. And then we'll do errors, also an array, by default an empty array. Okay, so what we need to be able to do is ultimately I want to have HTML, and we were going to set this HTML like this, where it's like a div, and we're going to have something called wrapper styles, or wrapper string rather, inside of there. And we're going to close that div, and then we're going to keep building this up like this, and oops, this needs to be on the outside here. And then this right here, we're going to keep building this HTML string up using a concatenate equals, and then we'll do our label. Our label is going to have 4 equals, and then we will do in here ID. Okay, and then we'll close that label, and inside that label we're going to just put in, pass down our label from the parameter. Okay, so now we have our label, so then let's do our HTML, and that is going to be our input. So let me close all of that so I don't mess this up. And this is going to have an ID equals ID. And then we will do a name. We'll also make the name equal to ID. And these need to have single quotes around them. Like that. We'll do value is going, oops, value is equal to value, like that. The next thing that we want to do is we're going to go ahead and put any sort of extra things in this input attributes, like that. The next thing that we want to do is we want to concatenate on our div, and this div is going to have a class equal to invalid feedback, like this, and then we'll close that div off, and inside of here we're going to create an error message like this, which we haven't created yet, so don't worry about that. And then we're going to put a closing div, another closing div on the end of this to close off this first wrapper div. The next thing that we're going to do here is just return that HTML like this. So now we just need to go through and create these wrapper strings and all that other stuff. So what we're going to need to do here is we're going to create a couple helper classes in here, or I'm sorry, a couple error classes in here to help us. So what I'm going to do is we'll go down here and we'll do a public static function process attributes, and it's going to take an attributes thing here, and then we're going to create an HTML, set that equal to an empty string, and then what we're going to do is say for each attributes as key value pairs, then we are just going to do HTML here, dot equals to concatenate on, and we'll do a space, and we're going to say key is equal to, and we'll do single quotes here, and then we're going to put in our value with our string literal, just like that. And then at the end here, what we're going to be able to do is just return HTML. So this will get us quite a bit through this process attributes. Will get us a few of these that we can do. Which that doesn't make any sense the way I said that. But anyways, we're going to do input attributes. For now, this is going to be equal to self process attributes here, and we'll pass in the input attributes from right here. Okay, so that will be that. So now we have our input attributes. We need our wrapper string here. So our wrapper string, we can put that above here if we want. Wrapper string is going to be equal to self process attributes, and we can pass in our wrapper attributes like that. So now we have our wrapper string, and I gotta spell this correctly there. I'm really dumb right now. For some reason, I don't know if that gets 2 C's or not. Define process. It does only have 1 C, so let me go fix that. I knew that looked wrong. So we're just gonna have 1 C here on these, and we'll just update our process attribute function there. The next thing that we need to do is we need this input attributes to append the errors. So what we're going to do here is we are going to have another class. It's going to be a public static function append errors, and this is going to take a key, an input attribute, and an errors array. And what it's going to do is right here, we're going to pass errors into this. So what we're going to be able to do before we build out our input attributes here, we're going to say input attributes is equal to self append errors. And what this is going to do is add any sort of errors that we have for this input block into this attributes before it processes those into a string. And so what we have to do is we're going to pass, ultimately, we're going to pass the ID, and that will be our key. And then we're passing the input attributes into here. And then also at the end, we're passing all of the errors in. So this will, you'll see how this works in a little bit, but basically it's going to process these append errors, and then it's going to turn it into a string. So let's go now and look and finish that out. It's not that bad. We're going to do an if statement here, and we're going to say if array key exists. So if in this array there's a key that exists, and we're going to pass that key in to this. So we're looking for key, and then we're going to look for errors. because if there's no errors that's related to this key, we don't need to do anything, except for we are just going to return the input attributes at the end of this. So inside this if statement, we're going to add a class to this. So we're going to check if that exists. So if, again, we'll use the array key exists, and we're going to look for class. Okay, and we're going to look inside of the input attributes that are passed in. So if the word class exists in there, then what we're going to do is say input attributes class, and then we're going to concatenate onto that a space, and then we'll do is invalid. Okay, so this is a bootstrap class that's going to add is invalid to the class list. Else, what we're going to do is we're just going to add it then, because if it doesn't exist, we need to add it. So we're going to add class, oops, and then this will be equal to is invalid, just like that. So now all this does is takes the input attributes that we send into this input block, and if we have any errors related to this input block, we're going to add a class called is invalid. But if they added other classes themselves, we're just going to add is invalid to their predetermined classes that's sent down to it. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to do with this is we need to populate this error message, and all we have to do there is say error message is equal to, and we're going to use our array key exists to find if there's an error, so we can search for the ID in our errors array. If that exists, then we are going to set it equal to our errors ID. Else, we are going to just put in an empty string there. And that's it. This input block should work now. And we'll go through all of this as we do this. But now we can quickly build our form out without having to add a bunch of stuff. So let's get as far as we can with these input blocks. So in this row, let's just get rid of this right here. And instead, what we're going to do is at the top here, let's go ahead and do another PHP opening tag here. And let's just use core \form helpers. And we'll close that off. And then in here, what we're going to do now is echo out. So we'll do a PHP echo FH input block. And then this will take our label, which will be first name, as the first parameter. The next parameter is going to be the ID, so in this case it's fname. The value for now, let's just put an empty string. For the wrapper or the input attributes, let's give it a class. Like if this is a bootstrap class, we're going to call it a form control, like that. The next thing that we want to do is give it another wrapper class or wrapper attributes, and we'll add a class there as well. And here we're going to give it a form group, oops, a class of form-group, and also a call medium 6, which would make it half the screen there, or half the available space. The last thing that we're going to pass in is errors, and we're going to pass in this arrow errors. Now that doesn't exist yet, so let's just go and make that exist. So go to the Auth Controller, and the way that we're going to make this exist for now is we are just going to say this view errors is equal to an empty string. So now we can test this out. We'll go back here and hit refresh, and now we have this first name thing that's taking up half of our available space. And if we want to test the error message, what we can do just real quick is go to the Auth Controller, and inside this errors, let's give this an fname, and we'll give it a message of first name is required. Okay, this is not a real error message, but this is how it's going to work. So now if we go back and we hit refresh, now you can see that this is highlighted red because it's got the class is invalid, and then we get this feedback at the bottom called first name is required. The reason that's happening is because we are taking these input attributes here, and we are appending any sort of errors for this input with this append errors, which as that class is invalid, which is a bootstrap class that just gives it that style with the highlighted red. And then we have this invalid feedback, and because the error message, the ID matches the error messages we sent in, so this was F name, it adds that to our error message, and so that shows up underneath there. So now what we can do is we can very easily copy and paste these. So let's do another one for last name here right underneath there. So if I hit that, hit enter, and then we'll change this to last name. We'll change this to L name for that, and then we're going to leave everything else exactly as it is. We'll hit save and refresh. And now we have last name, but last name doesn't have an error because we didn't assign an error in the auth controller for that. So in fact, if I just change this to L name now, we should only have an error on the last name. Okay, so that is how that's going to work. So now I'm going to put this back to an empty array for now. We'll actually do real errors there soon. But now we can build out our registration form using these sweet little input blocks, and we're going to continue to extend this form helpers to do selects. We're going to have a text area and even a file upload and a few other things in this form helpers that will help us build our forms out with very little code and make it very clean looking. So let me close my Explorer here so you kind of can't see the whole line here, but I think this looks pretty smooth. So anyways, we got a good jump on our registration. Now, what's really slick about this is our controller renders our view. Right now, all it's doing is processing errors, which is an empty array, but then it renders our view. Our view has all of our HTML in it, okay? So this is, our view has to do with the front end that people will see for this controller action. So that's pretty cool, and we're using our view methods to start and end here, and then that gets inserted into our content here, which is really sweet because now we have our menu and everything else that we want on our page, and we don't have to recreate that because we're using our default layout. So I think what we'll do, let me see, input. I guess we can do one more here. Yeah, what we'll do here is we'll do another input. So I'm going to copy this. We'll paste it one below here. Let's do email. We'll set the ID of that to email. The other thing that we can do here is we can, in this class, are these input attributes. We can add another one here called type. Oops. Comma type, and this type we can set that to email, so this will be an email type field. Okay, so I'm going to save that, and we'll go back and refresh, and now we can see if I right click on this and inspect it that this is has the type of email. So this is an email field, and if I just type something in here, it would give us a JavaScript error when we try to submit the form. All right, so the next thing that we're going to need is actually a select block, and I don't think we should take the time to build that in this video. So for now, let's go underneath here and let's do another div with a class of row. And then let's go ahead and copy this input block here, and we'll paste that twice. And we're going to go ahead and do password, and then we'll do confirm password, and we'll just give that an ID of confirm. And then for the type here, let's set both the type of this to password, like that. And then let's go back, save that, and refresh. And now we have some password fields here, so that's good. And then I think that's it for our fields until we do our select block for this. I'll go ahead and tab that over there. All right, so the other thing we're going to need is our buttons to submit the form. So let's do a div with a class of text right, and inside there we're going to do an a, which an href. We're going to set that equal to our root, and then for now, you know what, just put a hashtag there, and then we'll give this a class equal to button secondary, which is all Bootstrap 4 stuff. And we're going to give this, just call it cancel. And then the next thing that we'll do here is we're going to do an input with a we'll give it a class equal to button primary. We'll get a value equal to save, and we'll do a type equal to submit. This will submit the form. So we'll hit save here. Let's go back to the form now and refresh and see what that looks like. So now we have a cancel button and a save button here. Let me check one more thing here. Yep. For now, I think we're going to stop here for this video. In the next video, we're going to create our select block, and then we'll start building out some more logic in our controller to make this form work. So I will see you guys in the next video. Please comment, like, subscribe, and I still need to push this up to Git. So git add, git commit -m, and we will say started the register form. And I said from there. We'll do a git push, git checkout main, git merge v19, and git push. All right, guys, well, that's it. I will see you guys in the next video. We'll continue on with this form processing for the register action later on.